Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. I wanted to introduce someone who has created a fantastic podcast on YouTube. His name is Ahmed from the University of Iowa College of Pharmacy. And the next 5 days, you're going to hear one episode each day. And I encourage you to go to his channel to subscribe at YourPop, YOURPOP. It stands for the Your Pursuit of Purpose podcast, where he interviews successful people and how they got down their leadership road. So hopefully you'll subscribe. 2,000 people already have in the last month. And here we go.
What's going on, guys? This is Ahmed, and I'm here today with episode 4 of the Your Pursuit of Purpose podcast. And I actually have an amazing young guy that I'll be interviewing today, and he goes by Ahmed Ismail.
How you doing?
Hi. And he's actually a mechanical engineering student from the Iowa State University. He recently was selected as a McNair Scholar, which he will be enrolling in this coming fall semester, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And the McNair Program is actually a United States Department of Education initiative with a goal of increasing attainment of PhDs by students from underrepresented segments of society. He just returned from a study abroad, which he completed in the United Kingdom.
Yep, Birmingham, England.
Birmingham, England. And do you have the accent yet?
Birmingham.
Birmingham.
Don't pronounce the H.
from the UK, and then he actually just completed his co-op at GE Aviation sector.
That's correct. I was working military propulsion and power engineering.
Wow, that's above me, so shout out to Ahmed. And so today we're actually just going to start off by just diving down and going back to your childhood and when you first immigrated to the United States, which was quite some time.
2003, yeah.
2003.
It's been a while.
Yeah, and Ahmed, when he first got here, he came with no English whatsoever.
That's correct.
With maybe just a couple words he was telling me a while back.
I just pretty much knew hi, hello, and it's funny, it was because actually when I first moved here in 2003, Ahmed was one of the first people I actually met. We moved into the same neighborhood, Pheasant Ridge.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because when we first moved here, it wasn't actually like a legit move. It was more of, we told the U.S. like, hey, we're coming on a visit, we want to watch our niece graduate. And the funny part is just my mom came with all the check bags, like whole life packed up. And as we're coming through TSA, we're just saying we're visiting, but it's kind of funny just because we had everything with us and just like no one kind of suspected it. And it's hilarious just because literally within 3 weeks of being in the U.S., my mom had me enrolled in school. And this was just off a visit, a 30-day visit where our visa was expiring and everything like that. It was a life-changing moment, but...
And so can you kind of just tell them about some of the challenges after you immigrated here, you and your mom by yourselves, you left your dad back home. So can you kind of just tell us, that's a difficult situation to deal with,
So, me personally, it wasn't too bad just because for me it was just, the problem was not knowing English as a kid. But I had people like Ahmed who spoke Arabic with me, so that kind of made it easier. But I'd say it's really tough for parents when you're moving to the U.S. just because you hit the restart button, not just on your social life, but your career as well. So for my mom, she was actually an electrical engineer before we moved to the U.S. Mm-hmm. So she actually even had her own company. And prior to doing all this, she was even working at IBM as well as the U.S. Embassy and French Embassy in Sudan. But pretty much hit the whole restart button and just in hopes of, hey, maybe I'll get the engineering job when I move to the U.S. as well. Moved. And unfortunately, just due to the fact that she wasn't a citizen at the time, she wasn't able to find employment as an engineer.
Right.
So went from being an electrical engineer just to working at the daycare, actually at the neighborhood center. So she was just a daycare assistant. And at first it was just a volunteering position. So she just volunteered there. After work, pretty much come home, take care of me. And it wasn't until like 3 months in that she actually had a paid salary. And fortunately, the good part about subsidized housing is it's only a third of your paycheck, but if you're not getting paid, it's just free living.
Right. And some people, I know there's like this, there's this stigma about low-income housing and things like that, but if you're in a similar situation as Ahmed was once upon a time, where you come here to a new country, or you're just moving into a new place that you have no resources, nobody to really give you a helping hand, something like this is not only an opportunity, but it's the only way to kind of live. Right?
Yeah, it really is. Like, for example, with resources, one of the things I had to do with clothes, we didn't really have much money at the time, just due to the fact that Mom wasn't making that much. Most of the money that we had was pretty much either to the bills or putting food on the table, things like that. So for clothes, I was very fortunate to have people in my life that are very close to me, such as my friend Jamal Sanada. And at the time, he was pretty much first person I like really latched onto, just because me and him just like played video games together all the time. It was just like we're game heads. That's just how me and him just kind of clicked right away. But one of the things that he really helped me with was just kind of it'd be like once every couple months, Jamal would just come through and he'd have this big trash bag with him. Randomest thing, but like it put this biggest smile on my face just because he always brought clothes for me. So at the time, it was one of those resources I actually had. So like, just once a year he'd come through with a trash bag and that would be my source of clothes, just because Mom couldn't actually buy me clothes at the time.
Wow, man, that's tough. But I mean, now you got the swag now. So
shout out to CJ Maxx.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it is difficult, like the situation that you'd be put in, and you gotta take what you can get. Right.
That's
At
true.
that point, you
work with what you got.
Right. Exactly, and that shows you like you tend to mature at an earlier age if you're put in these kind of situations. So you kind of have to say, like, maybe you wouldn't be as snobby as maybe another child that'd be like, no, Mom, I want this, or no, Dad, I want this. Be like, okay, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah.
Right. Which is great. And in terms of just school, Ahmed, at Iowa State, so you're studying mechanical engineering.
Yeah. Studying mechanical engineering, but it wasn't always like I came in knowing I wanted to do mechanical engineering.
Okay. So
I literally graduated a month after turning 17, and hardest part for me was knowing what I wanted to do. Like, I know if you watched with Dude, he had that passion for the automobile industry and like founded Tesla. Lillian had a passion for politics. For me at a young age, I really didn't know what I wanted. So like I came in at 17. I was actually undeclared my first year. Second year went to electrical engineering. Did not like that.
How come?
Honestly, for me, I really feel like I thrive when working with groups.
Right.
And one of the things that I saw as electrical engineer is more of like, hey, here's your work, go take this, go in your little corner, program, come back, give us the answer. I didn't really enjoy that just because it didn't give me much opportunity to interact with others, and I felt kind of isolated, as well as it was also a mixture of my first year at Iowa State just because I felt like I experienced what's known as Imposter Syndrome. I really didn't feel like I fit in, and at first I kind of thought I was like, oh, maybe I just didn't like my major. But that's kind of one of the things I dealt with, and it kind of pushed me away from electrical engineering. But I'm glad that I actually ended up switching and going mechanical because I actually loved it.
Right. And actually, just 1 second, going back to this whole imposter, because that's something I've heard of before, imposter syndrome, and it happens quite often to like minorities, people who feel like I'm somewhere that I don't belong, or I'm somewhere that I don't deserve to be, just because of the fact that everyone around them doesn't look like them.
Yeah,
right?
like it wasn't even. I actually experienced it way before college because for me, growing up in Sudan, I had never actually seen a white person in my life. Like, the first time I actually saw a white person was when we were flying from Sudan to the U.S. We had I never forget it. It was a connection in Frankfurt, Germany. And I walk out the airport. Literally just walk out, and I'm just seeing all these people. And as a child, I'm fascinated. Like, I'm like, you guys are real? Like, I've only seen you on TV. Like, what?
Right.
Thought you were only in the movies. And then get to the U.S. and I'm just like, whoa, you're everywhere. Right. And then it was to the point where after a while I was just like, maybe I'm the odd one out. And like I go into elementary school, I kind of felt like outcast just due to the fact that I didn't know English at the time, as well as I was the only one that kind of looked like me. Mm-hmm. So that was something I experienced through school. And then as I got to college, it was just kind of intensified a little bit more just due to the fact that I didn't have that support system. So I didn't have, like, everyone I grew up at the Pheasant Ridge with, such as you, such as your brother Hassan and Wadu and all them.
Right. For sure. No, and just going back to, like, that, because this imposter syndrome, this thing is, like, it's an ongoing issue in like in society, especially for first generation students in college.
Yeah.
So like, how did you, I guess, navigate across it, or make sure like, or tell yourself inside like, okay, I might look different, or I might be coming from a different background, or whatever it might have been, or like maybe coming in feeling like I don't feel comfortable with my own knowledge base or my own skills, or whatever it might have been, whatever reason that was slowing you down, saying like, hey, I don't belong here. How'd you overcome that specifically?
That's a good question. At first, I looked at it more of as a lack of confidence, or just like I just thought of myself as a shy person. But I think it was later on in college it was more of like I became conscious of the fact that I just didn't feel comfortable, and I was like, why don't I feel comfortable? Like, I'm capable of learning just as any human being is. Like, when I don't perform well in school, like at first in high school, because I didn't have good grades, I was just like, oh, maybe it's not for me. Then I realized, I'm like, wait, I can pick up a book, I can read. Like,
Right.
The only reason I didn't perform good on my exam was like, maybe if I just put more time to studying and like less time, going out playing basketball, things like that, I'd do better on my exams. And like I became conscious of that, and it completely changed everything, especially my grades. And it's part of the reason I'm had the confidence to even pursue a PhD.
Right. And this whole McNair program, because now that you're in a place where you were able to get inducted or selected for this it's a scholarship, or it's a scholar program?
It's a program. So
Right.
It's a graduate prep program that kind of pretty much guides you and provides you with the network necessary to successfully attain your PhD.
Okay, and I'm guessing it's pretty selective, right? They don't just let anyone.
Yeah, it's pretty selective.
So it's a rigorous process to get into.
It's a nerve-wracking interview, but
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, it was one of those things I got selected into.
That's awesome. So, did you always know you wanted to pursue a PhD? Because you went from high school where you didn't have the best grades and you didn't really like school.
Not even that. I'm not
He's
even
already
like,
saying no.
Yeah, so even that last question is like, do I like school? Like, at high school, I definitely don't like it. Even in college, even though I started performing better,
Right.
I think till this day, I don't really enjoy school as much. I love learning, don't get me wrong, but I think school is not the best environment for learning. So if you look at pretty much everything in this world, like you look at cars, you look at healthcare, you look at just whatever it is you look back at, if you go back 150 years, it did not look the same as today, right? If you look at a classroom and the way we teach, it's almost the exact same. And you have things like Khan Academy, which are kind of like changing it, but the change is so slow. And it just doesn't make sense to me that you can throw in 100 people into one lecture, right? Have them just watch this big lecture and be like, all right, now regurgitate all that on a piece of paper. You can't expect everyone to conform to one style of learning when everyone at the end of the day is their own individual and has their own style of learning.
Right.
That's the main reason I don't like school as much. But I think the reason I recommend people stay in school is just it's a guaranteed formula. Like, it's proven. You go to school, get your degree. Off that, you go off, do what you want to do.
Right.
If you don't go to school, it's just there's no formula, there's no set structure.
Right.
You don't really know how you're gonna make it. I'm not saying you can't make it. You definitely can, but it's harder. It's not guaranteed.
Right, no, for sure. And then with the whole pursuing a PhD thing is that during the course of a PhD, you're doing your own research. You're not confined to that, going to a classroom, watching a lecture with 100 other people. You're doing your own project.
That's it's very exciting and at the same time very scary, because with PhD, it's like the way Brian Hall, he's someone with PhD, the way he explained it to me was if you could put all the world's knowledge into just like one circle, getting your PhD is equivalent to pretty much popping that bubble and kind of expanding the circle of knowledge. So it's like you were saying, you can't really, if you have a question, you can't really Google anything. You can't go ask someone or go read a research paper, right? You can use it for the foundation, but at the end of the day, if you have questions, you do an experiment. After you do that experiment, you get a data point. With that data point, you determine what the answer is. Maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but it's useful at the end of the day. Maybe you just need more data points. You never know. And that's another scary part. You could be doing it for 6 years and have all this data and just be like, I don't know if this makes sense. Maybe you just weren't asking yourself the right questions, but yeah, it's scary.
You'll have to know when to abandon ship. That's what they call it. When you just got to say, okay, time to go back to the drawing board. No, for sure. And then do you know what you want to do your PhD in as of right now? Because I know it's early on. You still have a couple years left in your undergrad studies. But do you kind of know what you're passionate about in terms of research and learning?
I have general interest, but I wouldn't call anything a passion, and that's one of the things I'm still trying to figure out till this day. But one thing that really helped me is it's like I was saying, asking the right questions, because everyone asks you when you're like, oh, what are you passionate about? What do you like?
Mm-hmm.
And those were questions I always got, and I was just like, it was nerve-wracking. I was just like, I don't know what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't have the answer.
Right.
And that same person, Brian Hall, one day he asked me, he was like, maybe it's not about what you do like. Ask yourself, what do you hate? Like, what's something that really makes you mad? Like, something that would make you get up in the morning and work hard.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the answer at the time, but today I do. And for me, I was thinking about my past experiences in Sudan. Like, what makes me mad? And it was the things I saw in Sudan. The fact that, half the world lives on $1 a day, or there's enough food in the world to feed every single human being, but people still starve. Things like that. Or the education system, the way it's currently set up. Things like that,
You really got strong words to say about that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I definitely got you. And just going back to everything, so just you navigating your way across your undergraduate studies and whatnot, what are some things that you can tell people, even though you're someone who doesn't believe, like you don't believe the education system is how it should be. It should be more, it should have changed more, it should have been more progressive, basically.
Yeah.
But what would you say for people who are right now in the classroom, and like you and I, that are they're attempting to get their degrees in whatever study or whatever course of study they might be going through? What can you tell them to, like, what are some tips maybe you can give people that have to, or that don't like the style of learning that's given to them, but they still have to utilize it?
I mean, you said earlier, you play the cards you've been dealt, and it's something what dude says all the time, and like till this day I always say, you gotta do what you gotta do in order to get what you gotta get. And it's something we always say, but sure, you don't like something, but guess what? It's set up. It's a system that's proven to work, and it's what you have. So use it to your advantage. Use your resources, and when you don't have the resources, ask yourself, how do I get those resources? It's a matter of being resourceful.
Right.
I think that's the number one tip I'd give to everyone. Just try to be resourceful, because you're not going to have everything.
Right. Utilize the resources, because they're out there. The resources are definitely out there.
And if they're not out there, ask people, like, hey, I don't have this resource, but I see that you were able to attain that resource. Like, how did you get to that?
Mm-hmm.
Ask for advice, number one thing. That's really something that's always helped me.
For sure.
Be a learner.
Oh, be a learner. And just talking about learning, you just keep hitting these things, and it kind of just changes the question that I was going to ask you.
Sorry about that.
No, it's good. But in terms of just learning, when you went out and did your study abroad, how was that being in the UK? Was that your first time, other than maybe connecting airlines or whatever?
It wasn't my first. I've traveled a decent amount, but I'd say it's the first time I left my community. So, like, although I've always traveled, like, with close friends. But it was the first time, like, I was out that comfort zone. It was the first time I was integrated in a community outside of my own, so like outside the Sunnis community for me.
Different environment.
And study abroad is one of those things where it's the majority of the learning you have it's mostly outside the classroom. And it sounds weird to say, but you just become more conscious of yourself, the actions you take. So like one of the things for me was I've always had understanding that, people live just as a complex life as you do, but after going there, it's just something you're more conscious of. That's one of the things. 2, you have a better understanding of your likes and dislikes, and if you're someone trying to find your pursuit of purpose, I think that's something that you definitely need to figure out. You need to know what you like and what you don't like. Something that simple is going to help you find your purpose. And I think that's why I'm a big advocate for study abroad. On top of that, outside of learning, it makes you more marketable for internships as well as graduate schools. It's just a win-win. And who doesn't want to go to a new country? Like, what?
Right.
And once you're in Europe, like, you can go to country to country for really cheap. So, quick example, I went to Spain for 30 euros there and back.
Dang. Wow. That's what's up. All right. And Ahmed, again, thank you so much for joining us today on the Your Pursuit of Purpose podcast. And just one thing that I like doing is just for you to giving you an opportunity to give one last thing to the audience to pursue their own purpose. Anything you can think of.
That's hard. Ask yourself the right questions. At the end of the day, no one can give you a dream. Like, no one can sell you dreams. Like, people will try to sell you dreams, but at the end of the day, you know yourself better than anyone. You have the answers. So just be persistent with yourself and try to ask those questions. Like, sometimes, like, you know, asking yourself, oh, what do I like? What do I hate? You're not going to know it right off the bat, but be persistent. Just be persistent with those things. And if you're consistent, you'll get to it. You say it all the time, consistency is key.
Consistency is key and knowledge is power.
Exactly.
I live by that every day. And again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I really
Appreciate it, Ahmed. Yeah, for sure. And I hope to see you next time on episode 5 on the Your Pursuit of Purpose podcast. And until then, keep pursuing your purpose.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.